Hi, I'm reading from the book Färjan, The Ferry by me, Tomas Berglund, in English. We're on the ninth episode. Do you remember that I shaved you clean afterwards so you shouldn't have tassels? Yes, I remember that. You still have plenty of memories from your period of illness, of having been psychotic. I remember most of it, I think. At 1 o'clock you would be picked up at your new accommodation. That's right. At 12 we took 2 chairs and sat in the corridor by the bells and waited. That's right. I remember that too. I was so nervous. Some of the staff complained that we were in the way, but we were allowed to sit undisturbed. It was quite educational and calming to look at the clocks. Finally, your contact came and we said goodbye. I remember that too. But I didn't know that it would take several years before we saw each other again. Not just the looks. It's probably not just about the looks, but the whole charisma. There's something crazy that Johannes conveys. It's not quite 100%. I don't actually know what it is. Sometimes I've thought that he might wear clothes that look like they were taken from the 80s, blue and pink, for example, and then he started to get a little saucy. I have a big saucy myself now. It starts somewhere there. It's not because of his looks that I like Johannes. I'm not sure what it is that I like about Johannes. Maybe it has to do with the fact that he shows a great deal of honesty. He's honest. He's himself. Johannes calls. As usual, he doesn't introduce himself. So I ask the question, is it Johannes? He answers yes. I have a faint hope that he will learn to communicate, but he doesn't. The phone crackles and I understand that it's him. Can we go today? He asks. Unfortunately, I have to answer the question in the negative. I have a life that is more or less scheduled, although you might not always believe it. Employment, housing assistance, a mother who needs help. I have quite a lot to do when it all comes down to it. But Johanna seems to live much more in the present. He is working on his problems right now, and I'm working on mine. Johannes' life revolves around TV and 600 Lob's life and anime. I understand it so much that he is completely absorbed in this TV and these series. I can see him sitting up at night watching and watching. Maybe there are more people who do that. Maybe more people around me. My mother talks every day about these different TV series that she follows. I'm not good at remembering everything, but it's packaged entertainment for relaxation and unwinding, to drift away for a while. It's so interesting, says my mother. I think it's so interesting. And I think, in what way is it interesting? Recently, Johannes has told me that he is out playing games. I think it's on the internet, but it could be games that are only on his computer or his video game console. I don't really know. He has talked about World of Warcraft and then the game Diablo 3. There is a fourth version of Diablo, but I think Johannes has talked about version 3 of the game. I just surfed as quickly as possible on Diablo, and then Final Fantasy 14. I asked him what it's all about, and then he says a lot of time is spent filling out the so-called equipment list. You should have as many things as possible in your list. In World of Warcraft they say that you should try to raise your level or degree. It is possible to get up to 80, I don't know. Johannes has expressed that he needs someone to talk to, like he gets a creeping feeling in the evening. Whether it's anxiety or doubt, uh, or whatever it is, Johannes may have a need for closeness, even though he may have a difficulty knowing what to do in different social contexts. He has told me that he usually calls the priest on duty. that the priest has spoken to him. I don't know for sure if it's the same priest several evenings in a row. I understand that it's in the evening that Johannes makes these calls. There's something about priests being completely confidential while other people are allowed to talk to a third party, that most people can pass on information. I was just thinking about Johannes when I thought back to my need to talk to my therapist. I could talk for hours on the answering machine. There was no way my therapist would have the time to listen to everything I was babbling, because sometimes it was like a babbling, sometimes a one-way communication, even though something is born when you start talking. I value speech very highly. It can be a way of processing information or putting things in the right place. How could it be that I was in such a great need to talk at that time? There was a lot going on in my life. I was single and a single parent. I was up and down. Can we go to Peter? Johannes asks. I do a quick calculation and explain that it costs 200 Swedish kronor, and then he understands. Better anyway. He has never been involved in splitting the fuel bill. I have been responsible for that on my own initiative. I don't know if I care that much. It's a special time we have together. Maybe he will understand in time. Or does he already understand? When it comes to Johannes, I'm one who doesn't really have time for him. Maybe it's just something I'm imagining, or that how it is. He needs me, not me needing him. I wonder if it's some kind of mindset, like two dogs that just does adjust to how they relate to each other. It's lightning fast, even faster. All it takes is a little smell and a little attitude, and they know who is who. The one who's that, the lead dog, the one who is in charge, and the one who is not in charge. It takes a lot for the dogs to go against their first instinct, to try to change the ranking. Johannes calls me. Shall we go out for a drive? It could be a completely different day and time than Wednesday 3:30 p.m. He's in the mood and so he takes a chance. And sometimes it suits me. Then I say, is it okay if I come to your place in 15 minutes? And it works out. I just put on my outerwear and go out and start the car. He's usually ready when I arrive. I jump into the car and fasten my seatbelt and we go, usually to Max for a luxury shake and then to Sikfors ferry terminal. Sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we're a little quieter together. There are no written rules or anything. Johannes is a little bit from one planet and I'm a little bit from another. It's almost magical how good it is when you mix the two of us together. Some of the things Johannes says have so much wisdom behind them, and some things can be completely off the wall. I sometimes notice when Johannes asks about something and I realize how deeply and how far one could analyze Johannes' question. But then you reach a limit when it's just good to untangle the threads and try to take the step forward. But I realize how much I learn about myself and my life when I'm with him, and he probably learns a lot from me. Isn't that a coat that Johannes usually wears when he walks? A long coat, like he crosses his arms over his chest. He looks down in front of him as he walks. I'm sitting in the nice warmth inside the car. I think Johannes must have gone to the common room where they can meet the staff. And then he's waiting outside for me to come with the car. Because suddenly he's out by the car. It goes so fast that he should not have come from his own apartment. At some point, the person who was a staff member said hello to me, because that person has been part of my housing support. I would also have liked to have a staff member to talk to all the time. However, that doesn't mean I would want to trade places with Johannes. I think I have a good life today. I have my own apartment and I'm responsible for my own finances and so on. I can move freely in most of society. That's fantastic. I'm not restricted in any particular way. I can surf the internet and watch any series and movies I want. However, I'm not a machine. I can be happy and sad. I can't figure out what I should or do or what I can do. It's not possible. My entire being is reflected in how I had it with other people earlier in my life. Everything is interconnected. Sometimes I think about this freedom thing, what it really is. If I say that I'm free to do different things, how free am I really? Is it just a feeling? Can freedom be measured? Who between me and Johannes is the freest? Johannes has his LSS accommodation and he has a good man or manager, but in many ways he's freer than I am. Sometimes I wish that I had it like Johannes. The other day I also started thinking about money. What is money? With money it's easy to measure the amount you have, but freedom is very abstract, a feeling that you have. New chapter, the ferry. Physically, the ferry goes from the north side of Sikfors ferry pier to the south side of the Sikfors ferry pier, a steel machine with two cables that goes back and forth across the river. Most often we come from the north side and stand in line. Johannes can get uncomfortable and think, turn around and we'll go back, but I'm a little more determined. I can imagine waiting. The ferry is completely free. At some point it has been full of cars, let's say 9 cars. We usually joke that it would be quite a boring job to drive the ferry, but you never cease to be amazed. As a child you might have loved such a profession. The ferry, everything goes in circles. We come back to where we were from the beginning. It feels too expensive to go into Piteå, even though the ferry goes half the way and back. It is so beautiful on the south side, but a kiosk with cold soft drinks to buy would have been something. Doesn't the ferry driver get dizzy, going back and forth? How many horsepower is it? Diesel engine. You load the cars one row at a time. Say you start loading on the right side to start with. The ferry is a construction that I never used until the summer of 2022. The first time was when my son Oscar and I drove to the ferry dock, and it was time for the ferry to load. I remember we're on the south side of the river in Sikfors and went north. We went across anyway and agreed that it was a little new adventure that we had been on. Now, 6 months later, I have probably taken the ferry around 5 times. I could have squeezed in 10 times, but five is probably more accurate. All these last times from the north side Sikfors to the south side Sikfors. It has become a habit that my friend Johannes and I leave from Älvsbyn, and then we drive towards Piteå. When we get to the municipality border between Älvsbyn and Piteå, it's not that far away. Then the right exit comes the right way. There's a symbol for a ferry and ferry appears after a while. It probably runs back and forth all day. I have no idea what times it runs from north to south and back again. 3 different lanes. The light is green for which lane you should take. There are life buoys hanging along the railing. One wonders if the ferry runs on diesel or electricity. Diesel is probably the most likely. There are at least 2 cables hanging down into the water. The ferry might follow these. Imagine building a floating craft that can transport vehicles from the north to the south side and vice versa, as a replacement for a real bridge. This is how you drive the ferry. What do you do with it in the winter? Then maybe you should take the opportunity to renovate the vessel, because I'm almost certain that ice forms on the river in the winter. When I search for the Färjan seaport, it seems like there's an ice road during the winter, no ferry traffic. The ferry takes me from my young self to my adult self, from my adult self to my older self. With the ferry, I make a journey. It's like I breathe in and then I breathe out, and then we're on the other side. It's a procedure, an approach. You park your car here and then you stand in the line, first come, first served. There's some form of communication using lights, and the ferry itself signals where to park your car. You could have gone out and checked the weather, but the crossing goes so fast that you're happy to stay in the car. It's kind of a silent communication, like it can be in traffic. You accept the situation. It is what it is. When I stand in line for the ferry at Sikfors in Piteå, I want to get south, across the river. My gaze wanders along the other bank to see where the ferry is, and there it is. There it comes. It's on its way to the north side or the east side. You can see how it's getting closer every second. It comes with cargo from the southwest side of the river. It looks like there's only one person driving the ferry. The ferryman. Does he have a boring or fun job? As a child, you probably wanted to drive a ferry. As a child, you didn't think about how boring it is to do the same thing over and over again. Everything was new. Ferryman, as it's also called. The ferry comes into position, and the cars that have traveled with the ferry roll off the ferry. Then it's time to roll onto the ferry. There are lights with green lights that show you where you should stand, and it feels very logical. Stop the car, turn off the engine and the lights. That way you can consider whether you are allowed to get out of the car when the ferry is on its way across the river. There is a life buoy hanging in the middle of the ferry, the kind you imagine would be thrown out if you went overboard. Can the ferry sink? Of course it can, but it doesn't happen that often, does it? Maybe it has happened once, I don't know, not several times, right? That would be a disaster. The ferry sinks. The ferry goes between two shores, with me and Johannes, our relationship, cousin Matthias who disappeared into his new woman, my stepfather who took his own life, my mother's relationship in the wake of the suicide, how we have pulled and unwound threads to try to sort out the ball of yarn, how my mother moves in with her sister Lina, how I gain and lose weight, meal after meal, drink after drink, coffee after coffee, cryptocurrencies, living in the apartment on Riddarvägen, bad relationship with foster family, chess buddies, relationships in the stairwell, dog life, the car and repairing the car, unpacking bookshelves, going through bookshelves. The ferry is about two people in Älvsbyn, one with the bipolar disorder type 1 who has a driver's license, and the other with high functioning Asperger's without a driver's license, who repeats roughly the same car trip every Wednesday for several weeks. The trip goes from Halmvägen 4 to Max Hamburger restaurant in the city center by Ica Quantum. There, the people order a luxury shake and then they roll towards Piteå municipality along the road, following the north side of the river, and to the Sikfors ferry terminal on the north side of the river. There they wait for the ferry that come from the south side. It can take slightly different amount of time to wait, but it's only a few minutes. When the ferry is in place, it unloads its cars and trucks. They roll off under their own power. Then the waiting queue of vehicles invited to roll onto the ferry. There are three green lights indicating which side of the ferry you should stand on. I haven't figured out uh, if it's always the same side that is loaded first or if it varies. Then the ferry is fully loaded and there is no room for any more vehicles. The gates are closed and journey across the river begins. You can see that there are at least two cables that ferry follows underwater. These make everything much easier. There may be only one way to go. Monotonous, maybe monotonous.